has already begun to slow. 4 quiet places are waiting in a single line. Nothing will rush you from one to the next. The hours can blur without effort. This is one long stretch of calm. The spaces will change, but the pace will not. And the night will keep carrying you forward. The dock rests exposed as the water pulls away. Wooden planks stretch farther than usual. The ferry ramp hangs lower toward the mud. Nothing here is waiting to move. The place feels paused rather than empty. The words do not need attention. They can remain like distant harbor sounds that no longer reach the shore. The ferry sits tied to its lines. Hull lights reflect faintly on wet ground. No waves reach the edge of the dock. The water has withdrawn, leaving silence behind. Ropes lie slack against the posts, their fibers darkened by moisture. No tension runs through them. The vessel stays where it is, supported by stillness. Along the dock, lamps glow unevenly, some brighter, some dimmer, all steady. Their reflections break on the mud, then disappear completely. The air smells of salt and wood, not sharp, not strong, just present enough to notice, then forget again. Time begins to stretch differently here, not forward, not backward. It spreads outward, thin and quiet, across the exposed ground. The ferry's windows remain dark. No movement inside. No sound carries from the deck. The interior feels distant, sealed away from the night. Footsteps would echo here, but none arrive. The dock holds only its own weight. Planks remain firm, unchanged by absence. A faint creak passes through the hull. Not a signal, just settling. Then nothing follows. Below the dock, shallow water rests, barely moving, barely visible. The tide has reached its lowest point and stays there, without instruction. Lights along the shoreline remain fixed. Warehouses sit back from the edge, doors closed, yards empty. The harbor feels complete in rest. Time loosens further. Moments do not connect. They sit apart, quiet and unrelated. No sequence forms. The ferry does not prepare to depart. It does not prepare to rest. It simply remains, neutral, balanced. A distant buoy light blinks once, then again, then holds. It marks position, not progress. The dock does not react to it. The ferry does not answer. The water stays withdrawn. Everything holds its place. The mud beneath the dock reflects no light. Its surface absorbs everything. Sound, motion, attention. The ground feels settled, finished. The ropes continue to rest against the posts. No pull returns to them. No current tightens their line. They remain where they fell. Air moves slowly across the harbor, not enough to stir the water, not enough to lift a sound. The night feels thick and calm. Time spreads evenly again. Minutes lose their edges. Nothing presses forward. The pause feels sufficient. The ferry's outline softens in the low light. Edges blur. Details fade. The vessel feels more shape than object. No horn sounds. No signal changes. No crew returns. The dock remains unclaimed by action. Lights continue to glow. Water continues to rest. The tide does not turn yet. Everything waits without waiting. The harbor holds its breath. The ferry holds its lines. The dock holds its length. Each part aligned, quiet and undisturbed, as the night remains low and still. There is no ending here, no cue, no transition. Only the dock, the ferry, and the withdrawn water, remaining exactly as they are until the tide decides otherwise. The dock remains exposed as the water stays away. Nothing pulls it back. Nothing urges it forward. The shoreline holds its shape. The stillness feels intentional, as if the night chose this moment to pause everything at once. The ferry's hull settles slightly, not from movement, from weight redistributing itself. The sound is brief, then gone. Along the dock, the lamps continue their uneven glow. Light gathers in small pockets, then fades into shadow between the planks. The pattern feels irregular, but familiar. Moisture clings to the wood. Darkened grain shows where water once reached. The surface feels cool and solid. Nothing dries, nothing shifts. Time loosens again, not stretching forward, not pulling back. It spreads thinly across the harbor, quiet and unmeasured. A rope creaks softly against a post, not from tension, from rest. Then it settles again, exactly where it was. Beyond the dock, the harbor opens wide. Water remains shallow, barely moving. The tide holds its lowest point without instruction. Warehouses along the edge stay dark. Windows reflect nothing. Doors remain sealed. No activity returns to them. The ferry does not anticipate departure. No engine hum begins. No light changes tone. The vessel feels complete in stillness. Mud beneath the dock absorbs everything. Light disappears into it. Sound does the same. The ground feels final, uninterested in change. Time stops suggesting sequence. Moments do not follow one another. They exist separately, quiet and complete. No order forms. A distant buoy light blinks again. Slow, measured. It marks location, not intention. The dock does not respond. The ferry does not answer. The water remains withdrawn. Nothing acknowledges the signal. Air moves across the harbor, not enough to ripple the surface, not enough to carry sound. edges soften further. The ferry becomes silhouette. The dock becomes outline. Details fade without disappearing. No footsteps arrive. No voice carries. No sound breaks the balance. The space remains unclaimed. Time spreads evenly once more. Minutes lose weight. Nothing presses forward. The pause feels sufficient. The ropes stay slack. The lamps stay lit. The water stays low, each part holding its position, without effort, without demand. There is no sense of nearing change, no hint of returning tide, no signal forming. The harbor feels settled exactly as it is. The dock remains exposed. The ferry remains still. The night remains wide. Everything aligned, quiet, and undisturbed, as the low tide continues to hold the shoreline in place. The harbor continues to hold its quiet shape. No sound travels far. No movement returns. The space remains open and still. The ferry's lines rest loosely against the posts. They do not tighten, they do not slip. Their weight feels settled, unconcerned with change. Along the dock, light reflects unevenly. Some planks shine briefly, others remain dark. The pattern never repeats exactly, yet nothing feels new. A faint scent of seaweed lingers in the air. Not strong, not sharp. It drifts for a moment, then disappears again. Time loosens further. Moments stop leaning forward. They rest where they land. No direction forms. The water remains shallow near the edge. Its surface barely shifts. No ripple completes itself. The tide holds its position without signal. Farther out, the harbor opens into darkness. No lights answer from the distance. No outline sharpens. The horizon stays soft and undefined. The ferry does not adjust. No engine warms. No interior light appears. The vessel remains present, but inactive. A soft creak passes through the dock. Wood settling. Nothing more. The sound fades as quickly as it arrived. Air moves gently across the surface. Not enough to cool, not enough to carry sound. The night feels thick and calm. Time spreads evenly again. Minutes lose their edges. Nothing presses for attention. The pause feels complete. The ropes continue to rest. The lamps continue to glow. The water continues to wait. Each part holding its place, quiet and undisturbed, as the harbor remains paused at the lowest point of the tide. The harbor holds its position without effort. Nothing signals the return of water. Nothing suggests departure. The shoreline remains exactly where it settled. Light continues to rest along the dock. Reflections form briefly, then fade into the exposed ground. No surface keeps them for long. The ferry stays connected to the posts. Lines remain loose, tension returns to them. The vessel feels anchored by stillness, not by force. Time no longer feels divided. Moments rest quietly beside one another. No sequence forms. The pause feels complete. The lower level remains lit after the building above has gone dark. Concrete stretches outward in clean, measured lines. Painted numbers stay visible on every pillar. Nothing here expects a return. The space feels paused rather than abandoned. The words do not need attention. They can remain like distant ventilation sounds that never quite reach the surface. Rows of parking bays extend in both directions. White lines stay sharp against the floor. No tires cross them. The level feels prepared but unused, held in reserve. Overhead lights hum softly, not loud, not silent, evenly spaced from wall to wall. Their glow does not change, and nothing flickers beneath it. Air moves slowly through the space, barely noticeable, just enough to exist. The temperature stays even, uninterested in the hour. Concrete pillars stand at regular intervals, each marked with a number, each unchanged. They hold the ceiling without effort, without sound. Time begins to loosen here. Minutes do not announce themselves. The space replaces the clock. Nothing presses forward. Along one wall, a row of closed doors leads nowhere. Elevators sleep behind metal panels. Stairwells remain unused. No call buttons light up. No footsteps approach. The floor reflects faint light, not enough to shine, just enough to soften edges. Oil stains remain where they settled long ago, unremarked, unimportant. Ventilation fans turn somewhere above. Their sound never sharpens. It stays distant and low. The air feels balanced and calm. Painted arrows guide no movement tonight. They curve gently, then straighten. Their purpose feels theoretical, not required. Time spreads wider. Moments sit beside one another. No sequence forms. The pause feels sufficient. A security camera remains fixed in its corner. Its lens reflects a small point of light. No motion triggers it. The system continues without notice. The far end of the level fades into shadow. Light weakens gradually, not suddenly. Distance feels contained, not endless. No engine sound reaches the floor. No door opens above. The building remains sealed from itself. The underground stays separate, protected from change. Concrete absorbs every sound. Even silence feels softened. Nothing echoes back. The space feels insulated, complete. Parking signs remain mounted on the walls. Letters stay clear. No instruction feels urgent. Everything waits without waiting. Time loosens again, lights lose their weight. Presence replaces progression. The stillness deepens gently. A faint draft moves once across the floor, then stops. No paper shifts. No dust lifts. The air settles again. The ceiling remains low and even. Pipes run in straight lines. No vibration travels through them. Everything feels anchored and secure. No signal announces an ending. No system prepares to power down. The lights remain on. The level stays awake, quietly. The building above remains dark. Windows show no reflection. No sound travels downward. The separation holds firm. Painted bay numbers repeat, one after another. Familiar now, almost unnoticed. The repetition feels calming, predictable. Time no longer feels like movement. It feels held within the space, contained by concrete and light. Nothing urges it forward. The parking level does not anticipate morning. It does not prepare for use. It remains exactly as it is, neutral, balanced. The lights continue their soft glow. The floor continues to rest. The air continues to circulate, each part holding its role. There is no sense of conclusion here, no final turn, no reason to leave. The space feels complete without resolution. The underground level remains lit. The offices above remain asleep. The night remains quiet. Everything stays aligned, orderly and undisturbed, through the long, silent hours before morning. The level continues to hold its quiet shape. No light changes its tone. No shadow shifts position. The balance remains exactly where it settled. Concrete pillars keep their spacing. Numbers remain clear. Nothing blurs or fades. The structure feels measured, intentional, complete. Air moves again, briefly. Not enough to cool the floor. Not enough to carry sound. Then it stills, as if nothing passed through at all. At the far end, shadow thickens gently. Light does not stop. It simply becomes less defined. Distance feels calm and contained. The closed elevator doors remain unchanged. Metal surfaces reflect softly. No indicator lights appear. The vertical paths stay asleep. Painted arrows on the floor curve and straighten. They lead nowhere tonight. Their guidance rests unused. The markings feel familiar, almost forgotten. Time loosens further. Moments stop lining up. They rest beside one another without order. No direction forms. The security camera remains fixed. Its small light does not blink. Nothing enters its view. The system observes nothing and continues anyway. Ventilation hum stays low, even, distributed. It blends into the space, then disappears from notice. The floor remains clear. No footprints appear. No debris shifts. The surface holds its stillness easily. Light pools repeat across the ceiling, each identical, each predictable. The rhythm feels settled, unchallenged. No sound arises from above. No movement reaches down. The building remains quiet within itself. The separation stays intact. Time spreads evenly again. Minutes lose distinction. Nothing presses them forward. The pause feels sufficient. The parking level does not prepare to change. It does not anticipate use. It simply remains available, neutral, steady. Concrete, light, and air continue together. No element draws attention. No element withdraws. Everything holds its place. The level stays lit. The offices stay dark. The night stays calm. And the stillness continues, unchanged and contained, as the hours pass without notice. The space remains unchanged as the hours continue. No new sound enters. No light shifts its color. The balance holds without effort. Concrete walls keep their cool tone. Surface textures stay visible. Nothing softens or sharpens. The structure feels permanent, unconcerned with time. Air drifts slowly across the floor. It does not stir dust. It does not change direction. The movement fades almost immediately, leaving nothing behind. Rows of empty bays remain aligned. White lines stay crisp. No shadow crosses them. The order feels deliberate, not enforced. At one pillar, a painted number repeats the pattern. Then another. Then another. The sequence feels calming, familiar, unremarkable. Time loosens again. Moments stop leaning forward. They rest quietly where they land. No urgency forms. The ventilation hum remains distant, never closer, never louder. It blends into the concrete, then disappears from attention. Light continues to pool beneath each fixture. Edges soften slightly, then settle again. Nothing flickers, nothing fades. The elevator doors remain closed. Metal stays cool. No call interrupts the silence. Vertical movement stays asleep. At the far end, shadow deepens gently. Not sudden, not complete. The darkness feels contained, never reaching back. The floor holds its clean surface. No mark appears. No sound echoes. The stillness feels practiced, almost routine. Time spreads evenly once more. Minutes lose weight. Nothing urges the space forward. The pause feels complete. Pipes along the ceiling remain straight. No vibration travels through them. No temperature shift follows. Everything feels anchored. The level does not anticipate activity. It does not prepare for return. It It simply remains available, balanced. Light continues, air continues, concrete continues, each element holding its role without demand. The underground stays awake in its quiet way. The offices above remain asleep. Neither presses against the other. Both exist without friction. No signal announces a change. No system resets. Nothing resolves. The scene holds its shape. The platform has been still long before the last train passed through. Steel beams hold their weight without sound. Lights remain on along the edge. Nothing here expects to change. The space does not ask for attention. The words can remain at a distance, like signals that continue whether they are noticed or not. The maintenance platform stretches above the tracks. Graded flooring runs in a straight line. Handrails frame the edges evenly. No tools are in use. No footsteps cross the metal. The structure feels prepared, but resting. Below, the rail yard lies quiet. Multiple tracks run parallel into darkness. Their surfaces reflect only faint light. No vibration travels upward. No movement returns from below. Lights along the platform glow steadily. They do not flicker. They do not dim. Each casts a soft pool, then releases it back to shadow. A control box stands near the center. Its panel remains closed. Indicator lights hold their state. No values change. No alert appears. Air moves slowly across the platform. Not enough to feel, just enough to exist. The night feels balanced here. Time begins to loosen. Minutes stop separating themselves. The platform holds the moment without marking it. The rhythm replaces the clock. Cables run beneath the walkway, secured, ordered, still. They disappear into the structure, then reappear farther along. The metal beneath feels cool and solid. Bolts remain tight. No joint shifts. Everything feels aligned and complete. Below, the tracks remain empty. Switches stay locked in position. No signal changes color. The yard stays asleep. Lights continue their quiet repetition. Beam after beam, spacing unchanged. The pattern becomes familiar, calming, predictable. A distant hum exists somewhere in the yard, not coming closer, not moving away. It blends into the background, then disappears entirely. The platform does not react to the hour. It does not anticipate morning. It simply exists in its function, neutral, reliable. Time spreads evenly again. Moments rest beside one another. No sequence forms. The pause feels sufficient. Along the railing, paint markings remain clear. No wear appears. No movement disturbs them. The edge feels secure. Below, gravel between the tracks remains undisturbed. No footprint breaks the surface. No shadow crosses the lines. The ground holds its silence. Lights reflect faintly off the rails. Lines stretch into the distance, then fade where darkness takes over. Nothing returns from it. The control box remains unchanged. No switch flips. No system resets. The state holds without effort. Air continues to pass quietly. Metal continues to cool. Light continues to glow. Each element holds its role. Time loses more of its shape. Minutes feel equal. Presence replaces progression. The night feels wide and calm. The platform does not signal an ending. It does not prepare for use. It remains ready without demand. Contained. Steady. Below, the rail yard stays quiet. Above, the platform stays still. Neither presses against the other. Both remain balanced. No sound announces a transition. No movement suggests return. Nothing resolves. The scene feels complete as it is. The maintenance platform remains above the tracks. The yard remains asleep below. The night remains quiet. Everything stays in place, orderly and undisturbed, through the long, silent hours before dawn. The platform continues to rest above the yard. No light changes its tone. No signal shifts position. The balance remains exactly where it settled. Along the railing, metal stays cool. Bolts hold firm. Nothing loosens or creaks. The structure feels grounded and secure. Below, the tracks remain empty. Steel lines run straight and parallel. Their direction leads nowhere tonight. No vibration returns from them. Lights along the edge keep their spacing, even, measured, unblinking. Each pool of light mirrors the last, then fades behind the platform. Air moves quietly across the grating. Not enough to notice, enough to exist. It carries no sound with it. The control box remains sealed. Panels stay closed. Indicators glow without variation. Nothing asks to be checked. Time loosens further here. Moments stop forming order. They rest quietly beside one another. No direction pulls them forward. Cables beneath the walkway remain fixed. Their paths stay hidden. No tension moves through them. Everything feels anchored in place. The metal surface beneath holds its temperature. Cool, even, unchanging. Footsteps would echo, but none appear. Below the platform, switches remain locked. Signals keep their colors. No route prepares itself. The yard stays asleep. Lights continue their calm repetition. Shadow follows light, then light again. The rhythm feels familiar now, almost unnoticed. A faint hum lingers somewhere in the distance, not approaching, not retreating. It blends into stillness, then disappears. The platform does not anticipate use. It does not prepare to wake. It simply remains available, neutral, steady. Time spreads evenly once more. Minutes lose distinction. Presence replaces progression. The pause feels sufficient. Paint markings along the floor remain clear. Guidance without purpose. Order without demand. Nothing needs to be followed. Below, gravel remains undisturbed. No mark breaks its surface. The ground holds its quiet shape. Nothing crosses it. Lights reflect softly off the rails again. Lines stretch into darkness, then vanish where the yard ends. No return comes from it. The control box remains unchanged. No system cycles. No reset begins. The state holds without effort. Air continues to pass. Metal continues to cool. Light continues to glow. Each element stays aligned. Time loses more of its edges. Moments flatten. The night feels evenly spread. Nothing presses forward. The platform does not signal an ending. It does not narrow or widen. It remains exactly as it is. Prepared. Resting. Below, the yard stays silent. Above, the platform stays still. Neither presses against the other. Both remain balanced. No sound announces a transition. No movement suggests return. Nothing resolves. The scene holds its shape. The maintenance platform remains above the tracks. The rail yard remains asleep. The night remains calm. Everything continues in place, quiet and undisturbed, through the remaining stretch before morning. The platform remains steady above the silent yard. No signal marks a final moment. No system prepares to change. Everything continues without awareness of time. Lights along the edge keep their soft glow. They do not guide. They do not warn. They simply remain, holding the outline of the space. Below, the tracks stay empty. Steel lines fade into darkness. Nothing returns from that distance. The yard feels complete in its stillness. Air moves gently across the grating. Not enough to feel, just enough to exist. The sound disappears almost immediately. The control box remains closed. Indicators hold their quiet state. No value drifts. Nothing asks to be adjusted. Time no longer feels like progression. Minutes lose their edges. Moments rest side by side. The pause feels sufficient. The metal beneath holds its cool weight. Bolts stay tight. No vibration travels through the structure. Everything feels secure and settled. Below the platform, gravel remains untouched. No footprint appears. No shadow crosses the ground. The surface keeps its calm shape. Lights reflect faintly off the rails once more, then fade, then return again. The repetition feels familiar, almost unnoticed. The platform does not anticipate morning. It does not prepare to be used. It remains ready without demand, neutral, reliable. The yard stays asleep. The platform stays awake. Neither presses against the other. Both exist in quiet balance. Time spreads evenly again. No moment feels heavier than another. Nothing urges the scene forward. The stillness holds. No sound announces an ending. No movement suggests return. Nothing resolves. The space remains intact. The platform continues to hover above the tracks. The tracks continue into darkness. The night continues to hold both. Everything stays aligned, orderly, and undisturbed as the final quiet hours pass without notice. The signal box has been awake long after the tracks beside it went quiet. Lights remain on behind the windows. Levers stand in their resting positions. Nothing here is waiting to be moved. The place does not demand attention. The words can stay slightly distant, like reflections drifting across dark water. The box sits just above the riverbank. Wooden walls hold a steady warmth. Steps lead up to the door. No one climbs them. No sound reaches inside. Inside, the floorboards remain still. Painted lines mark clear paths. No boots cross them. The room feels prepared, but unused. A long row of levers lines the wall, each one locked in place. Colors remain distinct. None are pulled. None resist. Outside the window, the river moves slowly. Its surface catches light, then releases it. The motion feels patient, unchanged. A single desk lamp glows near the logbook. Its light is warm and contained. Shadows rest where they fall. Nothing flickers. Nothing shifts. Time begins to loosen here. Minutes do not announce themselves. The rhythm of water replaces the clock. The night feels evenly spread. Beyond the river, rails stretch into darkness. Signals remain fixed. No color changes. The line stays quiet and complete. Inside the box, air remains calm. Not cool, not warm, just steady enough to disappear. The logbook lies open. Pages remain blank. No entry forms. The routine feels complete without record. Outside, the river continues its slow path. No debris passes. No ripples break suddenly. The surface stays smooth and dark. Levers remain untouched. Their weight rests. rests evenly. No mechanism responds. Everything holds its position. Time spreads further. Moments rest beside one another. No sequence presses forward. The pause feels sufficient. A faint hum exists somewhere beyond the walls, not coming closer, not fading away. It blends into the night, then disappears. The box does not anticipate a train. It does not prepare to change. It simply holds its role. Neutral, reliable. Light from the lamp softens the corners of the room. Edges blur slightly, then settle again. Nothing demands focus. Outside, the river reflects the box once more, then lets the image fade, then reflects it again, always returning, always letting go. The signals remain steady. The tracks remain empty. The water remains calm, each part holding its place. Time loses more of its shape. Minutes feel equal. Presence replaces progression. The night feels wide and quiet. The signal box does not signal an ending. It does not close itself. It remains ready without demand, contained, still. Outside, the river keeps moving. Inside, the room stays quiet. Neither presses against the other. Both feel balanced. No sound announces a return. No step approaches the door. Nothing resolves. The scene feels complete as it is. The signal box stays by the river. The tracks stay silent. The night stays calm. Everything remains aligned, steady and undisturbed through the long hours before morning. The box remains steady beside the river. No lever shifts its weight. No latch moves. The stillness keeps its balance. Inside, the wooden walls hold their warmth. Green patterns stay visible. No creak travels through them. The structure feels settled and familiar. The desk lamp continues its soft glow. Light pools across the surface, then fades gently at the edges. Nothing flickers, nothing sharpens. Outside the window, the river keeps its pace, slow, even, uninterrupted. Reflections form, then dissolve, then return again. Time loosens further here. Moments stop lining up. They rest quietly beside one another. No order forms. The levers remain locked. Colors do not dull. Metal stays cool to the touch. Nothing waits to be engaged. Air inside the box feels still, neither cool nor warm, just present enough to disappear. Nothing stirs it. Beyond the river, rails remain dark. No vibration returns. Signals hold their color. The line stays asleep. The logbook remains open. Pages lie flat. No mark appears. The routine does not require proof. remains distant. Even the water feels muted. The walls absorb everything. The space feels contained. Time spreads evenly again. Minutes lose distinction. Nothing presses them forward. The pause feels sufficient. Outside, the riverbank stays quiet. No shadow crosses it. No movement reaches the door. The boundary holds firm. Inside, the floorboards remain still. Painted paths stay clear. No step disturbs them. Order remains intact. The lamp continues to glow. The levers continue to rest. The window continues to frame the dark water. Each element holds its role. No signal announces change. No horn sounds. No light shifts. Nothing prepares to move. The box does not anticipate dawn. It does not prepare to close. It remains exactly as it is. Neutral. Reliable. Time loses more of its shape. Moments feel equal. Presence replaces progression. The night feels wide and calm. Outside, the river continues its quiet work. Inside, the room stays still. Neither presses against the other. Both remain balanced. Nothing resolves. Nothing concludes. Nothing begins. The stillness holds its form. The signal box remains by the river. The tracks remain silent. The night remains steady. Everything stays aligned, quiet and undisturbed, through the remaining stretch before morning. The box continues to hold its quiet place. Nothing shifts inside the frame. No sound sharpens. The balance remains exactly where it settled. The wooden floor stays firm beneath the light. Lines remain visible. No vibration travels through the boards. The room feels anchored and calm. Outside, the river keeps moving at the same pace. Not faster, not slower, just steady enough to disappear from notice. Its surface accepts the darkness, then releases it again. Inside, the levers remain untouched. Their positions feel final. No resistance waits in them. They rest without expectation. The lamp casts the same soft circle. Edges blur. Shadows remain where they formed. Nothing changes their shape. Time loosens again. Moments stops adjusting sequence. They rest beside one another. No direction forms. Air inside the box feels settled. Not circulating, not still. Just present enough to fade into the background. Beyond the window, the rails remain dark. No reflection appears. No signal responds. The line stays quiet and complete. The logbook remains open. Pages stay blank. No reason appears to fill them. The routine holds without record. Sound stays distant. Even the river feels softened. The walls keep everything contained. The quiet deepens gently. Time spreads evenly once more. Minutes lose weight. Nothing urges the scene forward. The pause feels sufficient. Outside, the bank remains empty. No movement crosses it. No shape approaches the steps. The boundary holds firm. Inside, the room does not prepare to change. No latch clicks. No light dims. Everything remains as it is. The lamp continues. The levers continue. The river continues. Each element holding its place, without effort, without demand. No signal announces an ending. No return is suggested. Nothing resolves. The stillness remains intact. The signal box stays by the water. The tracks stay silent. The night stays wide and calm. Everything continues in balance, quiet and undisturbed, as the hours pass unnoticed.